Okay, hey everybody, let me unmute you. I can't hear anyone.
Oh yes, we can hear you, Becca.
Oh, hello.
Yes, you got it.
Hey Giselle, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm good now. My goodness, what a trial that was. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm so happy to see you.
Of course.
Okay, all right, we've just got another couple of people coming in. So, can you see my screen now?
We can.
Perfect. Okay. So what I'll do is I'll record this and then I'll put it up in the group so that everybody can see it. So, so where are you from? Where are you tuning in from?
I am in Houston, Texas.
Oh, wow. Oh, how exciting. My sister and her family live there.
Really?
Yes.
That's a small world.
I know.
We've been in Houston because Texas is a very red state. We've been making this joke when people ask, where are you from? We just say Houston and they're like, Texas? And we're like, no, just Houston.
Yeah, it's just on its own. It's outside of Texas.
Yes.
Oh, that's funny. Well, we're all originally from the UK, and then my part of the family moved to Australia, and my sister moved over to Houston. So, yeah, got a very soft spot for Houston. She's in the Woodlands, just north.
Yes, I think. Love going up to the Woodlands. It's beautiful.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Okay, all right. So while other people are joining us, let's make a start. As I know we've had a bit of a late start here. So I'm Becca. I'm Becca Francis. So I'm a certified human design coach and reader. And so today I'm going to take you guys through the basics of the chart. So pull out all the main things that you need to know when you're first looking at your chart and how you can actually use it in real life. Because I know when I started looking at my chart, first of all, I opened it and then I closed it again because it was way too confusing. I was like, that's way too much. Yeah, does that sound familiar? Way too much for me. So now I've started to get to know the chart, and I've obviously read a lot of other people's charts. I think it's really important to know how to use it and apply that knowledge in everyday life. So that's what we're going to go through today. And at the end, like if you've got any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat, and then at the end we'll go through those questions as well. And we've already had a couple of questions submitted by one of the women in the group who couldn't be here, so we'll go through those as well. So welcome to Human Design Chart 101. So we're going to unpack the basics together.
Okay, Becca, will you check the waiting room? Kristen's in the waiting room?
Sure. Let's have a look. Ah, there she is. Awesome. Thanks, Giselle. Perfect. Hi, Kristen. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for bearing with us. Okay, so I was just talking about what we're going to go through today. So unpacking the basics of your chart and looking at how to use that chart in real life. So those are the things we're going to go through. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat. Great, you can see my screen, perfect. And then we can go through them at the end. And thank you everybody for bearing with me as well through that bit of technical difficulty. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I was just saying I'm Becca and I'm a certified human design reader and coach. I broke free of my good girl syndrome Still breaking free of it, still working through that, but I found that human design has really helped me with that. And I also broke free of my 9-to-5 grind a few days ago. So I'm full-time in my business now, which is all thanks to human design. So I teach other fearless women to do the same, through the intense power of getting to know their human design chart, so they can banish their inner goody two-shoes and finally stop people pleasing. So the start of this process is to really get to know your chart and get to know, you know, your open centers, your defined centers, your type, your strategy, all of that good stuff that we're going to go through today. So let's get going. So you are in the right place if you've heard about human design, but you want to know more about your chart and how it applies to real life. So I think that's the position that most of you guys are in, which is why you've joined the group. So I'm really happy to be taking you on this journey. So let's go. So do you know your human design type? I know most of you have put it in the group, but if you could drop it in the comments for me, and then we can see. It's always interesting to see what kind of types are attracted to certain ways of presenting the information, because sometimes it's Manigens who resonate more with, you know, live videos. Sometimes it's, you know, projectors resonate more with written content. Also depends on your active or passive learning style as well, which we can go through at a later date. So, Kristin, yeah, you're a Manigen, yeah. So we've got a lot of Manigens in the group. And generators. Vanessa, you're a generator. Yeah, so I'm a generator as well. So I was talking in my coaching group earlier about how we seem to be attracting a lot of Manigens, particularly to our group. Every type is welcome, obviously. I love you all. But the Manigens more than anybody. So it gives me an indication of which of the types is attracted to my type of energy. And you'll all find that all the different energies are beautiful in their own way, and they all attract a different type to them. You'll find, particularly if you're talking about this information on socials, that you'll attract a particular human design type, which is really interesting because it gives you an idea of how your energy works. So just so you're a generator as well. Perfect. Okay. All right. Now let me just double check and make sure that there's nobody else that's in the waiting room, because I'd hate to leave anybody outside. Let me just check. No, we're all good. Okay. All right, so what is human design? So human design is also known as the science of differentiation. So what makes us different from one another? And the system was channeled to Ra Uru Hu in a meditation session in Ibiza, in 1987, and it was a meditation session that lasted for days and days. I think it's 4 or 5 days. He was in this hugely long, deep meditation, and the system was downloaded to him during that meditation. And he's been sharing it with the collective ever since. He's since passed away, but there's obviously a lot of people that have kind of taken up the mantle on his behalf and are teaching the collective about human design. But that's where it originated with Ra in 1987. A lot of his teachings are still up on YouTube. You can listen to a lot of his lectures, which are fascinating. They're quite long. I listened to one the other day. It was kind of an hour and a half, but it was very, very fascinating. So all of his lectures and teachings are still up there. So Ra was told that human design was vital to helping the collective on the planet make vital consciousness shifts for the evolution of mankind. So that's what was downloaded to him. That's why it was downloaded to him. It incorporates several different systems. So human design combines the Kabbalah, the I Ching, astrology, the chakra system. It's different to the traditional chakra system, but it does incorporate that system within it. And then when you get into the deeper layers of human design, it incorporates quantum physics, genetics, and biochemistry. That's more the manifestation side of things. When you start to learn about that, that's really fascinating. But if you're a Manigem, quantum physics does come into your type quite a lot, which you'll see as we go through. So that's what human design is in a nutshell. So what will we unpack today? We're going to go through types. So the 5 different types in human design, your centers. So what makes a center defined and what makes it undefined, your authority, your strategy, and your signature and non-self. And then we'll talk a bit about, well, what do I do with it? What if I want to learn more, kind of what's the next step? So we'll cover that too. And like I said, if any of you guys have got any questions or comments, you can just pop them in the chat and we'll either discuss them as we go along or I'll answer them at the end for you. Okay, so your types. So when you first download your chart, the first thing you want to look at is your type. And there are 5, it's controversial, there are 4 or 5 different types in human design, because one of them is a hybrid type. I think there are 5 types because each of the types have their own energetic qualities. So I would say there's 5, not 4, but sometimes when you look around the net and you do a bit more reading, sometimes you might see there's 4 types, sometimes 5. But so your type is based on your centers. So the centers that you have defined or undefined and how they work together is what makes up your type. So the first type we have are generators, and generators are the most common type on the planet. The generators are the builder, known as the builders of the collective, or the alchemists of the collective. They're the real life force on the planet. So generators are the ones who get things done. They have a defined sacral, so they have access to a lot of sacral energy, and they have the ability to take an idea, respond to it, and build it, and they have the energy to carry it through. So the generators are the real builders of the collective. The next type we have is the manifesting generator. So the manifesting generator is a hybrid between the manifester and the generator, which gives us our manifesting generators. They have a defined sacral, same as a generator, but they also have a motor center, or the sacral that's connected to the throat, which is the manifesting side of them. So as a manifesting generator, depending on other things that you have defined in your chart, like how your centers are connected, will kind of let you know whether you have more of a manifestor energy or more of a generator energy. But our manifesting generators or manigens have both of those types of energy within them. So our next type are the manifestors. The manifestors are the cutting edge of the collective. They're the ones that kind of push our buttons and push our boundaries in a really good way to help us see what's possible. So rather than just sitting with the status quo and what is, manifestors help us see what can be. And manifestors are the ones that really drive the collective forward. And then we have our beautiful projectors. So projectors are our guides. They're the ones that give us the advice. They're the ones that can see things kind of from a bird's eye point of view. They can see systems, they can see more efficient ways of doing things. So that's what our projectors do for us. And our beautiful reflectors. Reflectors are very rare. They're only, in fact, they're so rare that it's hard to get or to create a chart for them from an actual person. So I normally use Sandra Bullock as my example. So Sandra Bullock and Teal Swan are 2 famous reflectors. So I normally use Sandra Bullock's chart to create a reflector chart. Although the reflector charts are all very similar, because they don't have any defined centers, I do like to try and use a person. So that's Sandra's chart right there. So those are our 5 types: our generators, manigens, manifestors, projectors, and reflectors. So does anyone have any comments or questions or anything they'd like to ask on those types before we move on? We'll go and really dig into what each of those types means and what their, what kind of identity they have. Okay, all right, so these are our generators. So Giselle, this is for you. Oh, and Ginny, you're a projector as well, our beautiful projectors. That's so wonderful to have you here. So generators, so I'm a generator. So I'll probably know more about this type than any of the others. So we're 35 to 38% of the population, and we are the alchemists or the builders of the collective. So generators have a defined sacral. So this is my chart here. And you can see I've got this defined sacral center. And the sacral center, when it's defined, is the center of life force, the center of creation, the center of pleasure, of play, of reproduction, of sex, of that real pleasurable life force of the collective, because we have that defined sacral. So the defined sacral operates like a battery. It's a motor center, and that means it can be recharged with things like play, with things like working at something you love. As a generator, you have to be working at something that you love. If you're not, it can really drain that sacral battery. I know from personal experience was when I was in my 9 to 5 and I was working at something that definitely wasn't lighting me up, that sacral, I would find it very hard to recharge my sacral center because there was no pleasure in what I was doing. There was no play in what I was doing. And now I'm talking about human design 24/7. That sacral center is always being recharged because I love it. So I can physically feel the difference in my energy when my sacral is responding to something that I love to do. And that's what human design does. Your type guides you to the right kind of activity that's going to light you up, the right kind of activity that's going to further the collective, that's going to benefit not just you, but benefit everybody. So like I said, our sacral centers are recharged by doing things that light us up. So not just by rest, but also by what brings us joy, what brings us pleasure, what brings us that real, I think of it, a good example, I think, is when you're doing something that you can lose hours doing. So when I was doing these slides yesterday, I just lost hours and hours putting these slides together. I looked up and the time was gone. And really that's what, as a generator, is going to help you understand what your sacral is drawn to and what you're responding to by that real feeling of joy and pleasure. So we're designed to feel playful, excited and satisfied and energized by what we're doing. So those are beautiful generators. So our manifesting generators. So they're the hybrid type between the manifestor and the generator, a little bit less common. They're the 30 to 35% of the population. And wonderfully, Manigens are known as the time benders of the collective. They move through life really fast. They can go from one thing to another, to another, to another really fast. They find the shortcuts to everything. They skip over steps to achieve things, sometimes to the point where they have to go back and redo steps because they haven't gone through every step that they needed to do. But they're the real time benders. They're the ones that collapse time and take quantum leaps if they're doing something that they love to do. So that's where the quantum side of it comes into it with manifesting generators. So Manigens have a motor center connected to the throat. So see here, the sacral center is connected to the throat. And like I said, they're a hybrid type between a generator and a manifestor. So as a Manigen, what you normally experience is that you've got sustainable energy to get things done. So you've got that generator energy where you can go, and it's something you love to do. But also because that sacral is connected to the throat, it's what is known in human design as your throat being motorized. So you can speak things into existence. So your throat center is the center of manifestation, where you can speak things into, you have a download and then you speak it into existence. So that's the manifestor side of the manifesting generator. You guys are here to be multi-passionate. You're here to move quickly. You're here to get things done. You're here to do a lot of different things during your lifetime. You know, you have the capacity to focus really deeply on one thing, get really involved in it, get really good at it, and then move on to the next thing. That can sometimes be challenging in today's society, where we're told to find one thing and to stick at it, and not to give up. You Managens aren't designed to do that. You are designed to hop to different things, and that's what the collective needs you to do. I was reading the other day that manifesting generators are really a bridge between manifestors and generators. So that's quite, the difference between manifestors and generators is quite a big gap. So we need you Managens to kind of fill in that gap in the energy of the collective, so you can kind of bounce around from, you know, thing to thing, whether that's a job or a hobby or a business, anything like that. That's what you beautiful Managens are designed to do. So there are your Managens. And next we have manifestors. I know we've got some manifestors in the group, at least one manifestor, but it doesn't look like she's here today. So manifestors, now we're getting into the rarer types in the collective. So beautiful manifestors. So between 9 to 12% of the population. And manifestors have an undefined sacral center, so they don't have the access to that sacral energy in the same way as generators and Managens do. So their energy works very, very differently to a generator and a Managen. So an undefined sacral center with a motor center connected to the throat. So Vanessa, your brother's a manifestor. That's so interesting. It's so interesting when you have a different type in the family. My family are all generators, but when you have a different type to yourself in the family and you start to learn about human design, you can really see the difference in their patterns of behavior, even from when they're children. You know, manifestors as children and generators as children are very different. And your conditioning, there's several different types of conditioning in human design, but as you know, if you choose to study it more and you get more into conditioning, you can see how you know, in families, if your parents are a different type to you, then you can be quite heavily influenced by their conditioning. So yeah, that's interesting. So manifestors have this undefined sacral center. So Vanessa, your brother's energy will have worked very differently to yours. His energy would have worked in cycles, whereas yours would be more linear. So you can work the whole day and have access to that energy all day. Your brother would have worked in cycles, either hourly or daily or even monthly in his cycles of energy. So that would have been a big difference that you might have recognized. So our manifestors have a motor center connected to the throat. These are the 4 motor centers here. And in this case, this particular person has got the emotional center connected to the throat. So an undefined sacral, but motor centers connected to the throat. So like we said with the Managens, the throat center is the center of manifestation. That's not manifestation in the traditional sense. What that means is bringing your inner world into your outer world. So it's the bridge between what would have been going on or what is going on in your brother's design compared to what's going on in the outer world, like trying to get those ideas and creations into the outer world. So that's what we mean by that manifestation center in human design. Manifestors are here to see into the unknown and expand our awareness. They're here to show us that it's not just what is that we should accept, it's what can be. What are the possibilities? They stretch the boundaries. They really push our known boundaries and help us see into the unknown. They're an incredible type. They're leaders by nature, and they have a strong connection to source energy. So if you look back historically, even back to the pharaohs, ancient Egypt, a lot of them were manifestors. So that manifestor energy is very much that natural leadership energy, which will lead the collective into new areas, into things that we haven't yet explored. So there are beautiful manifestors. And projectors, so Ginny, so beautiful Ginny is a projector. So your projector is a non-energy type. Again, they don't have a defined sacral. There, again, we're getting into some of the rarer types, between 20 and 25% of the population. Vanessa, your brother is a manifestor and husband is a projector. That's very interesting. Okay, so a projector and you are a generator. Interesting. So your husband's got that undefined sacral and you have a defined sacral. So that's an interesting combination for sure. You'll see the difference in the way your energy works will be quite pronounced, I should think. So projectors have an undefined sacral center, like I said, and they don't have a motor center connected to the throat. So their energy works very differently. So what projectors are here to do for us as a collective is to guide our energy and to hold space for us. And almost, I like to think of it as kind of hovering above the collective mentally, almost, and looking down at the systems that we use and looking down at the processes that we use and seeing a more efficient way to do them or a better way to do them that will push the collective forward. So really every type is about survival of the collective and evolution of the collective. And for the projector, they're kind of the architect. They're kind of drawing up the plans and looking at what we already have and saying, okay, all right, well, I think that could be done better. I think that could be done better. And the way that they give that advice is very specific. And again, the more you learn about human design and about the different strategies for the different types, the more you learn how projectors particularly, how their strategy works. So they're waiting for an invitation. They're waiting to be invited. They're waiting to be asked for their advice. So it's a very specific way that they operate. So for a projector, the power lies in their wisdom and how they share what they see. They're here to guide creative energy. They're also known as the midwives of the universe, which I think is a wonderful way to say it. So they're kind of birthing ideas into creation. They're kind of birthing the inspiration from the universe into the collective, and they're helping us with that. And they help create systems for the action takers. So they'll help create systems for generators and manifesting generators to use that will be more efficient and further the collective. Okay. So reflectors are extremely rare type. So reflectors are about 1 to 2% of the population. Now reflectors have no defined centers in their chart at all. They're here to act as mirrors. So they don't bring natural gifts to the collective like some of the other types do with their defined centers. They're here to act as mirrors for the collective and reflect back to us our health and our efficiency and how we're doing and could we be doing better. They really kind of stand back and observe the energy of the collective. They're designed to be at the center of a community, and you'll particularly see this in online business. So on Instagram, for example, Teal Swan is another example. Again, she's at the center of her community. Her niche in online business is her community, and she offers a reflection of the energy of the collective. She lets us know how we're doing energy-wise. And reflectors, because of all of their open centers, they're designed to absorb energy from the people that they're with, as well as cosmic energy. So it's really important for reflectors to be in the right environment as well. And there's a lot of reasons for that, which, again, if you study human design more and more, you get to know, you know, what the best way for them is to make decisions, what kind of environments are good for them to be in. So they are our reflectors. Does anyone have any questions about the types before we move on? Nope. Okay. If anything comes to mind, you can just pop it in the chat. So the next part of our chart that we're going to look at is the difference between our defined and our undefined or open centers. So those centers play a really big role in how our energy moves around the body, or how the energy moves around our human design chart. So our defined centers. So those are the ones that are colored in. It doesn't matter what color they are. They can be any color. It doesn't matter. But the defined ones are the colored centers. So these are the energies that you've brought into this life with you. They're your gifts to the collective. They represent your natural power. They are what you are here to contribute to the collective. And as far as your energy blueprint goes, you've got consistent access to the energy in those centers. So the energy in those centers is always moving. It's always kind of regenerating itself and moving around. It's a bit like a jacuzzi or a whirlpool. Your defined centers, it's like the jets in the whirlpool or the jacuzzi are moving that water around constantly and creating energy. And that's what's happening in your defined centers. So that's what you're giving to the collective and the people around you. So your defined centers are the energies that people feel from you when they meet you. You know how if you walk into a room and you get introduced to somebody, you can feel what sort of energy they're putting out. You can feel it straight away. And that's their defined centers basically speaking for them, and speaking for them quite loudly as well with the defined centers. So this is the energy that people feel from you when they meet you, and you feel from other people, and it's the energetic impact that you have on the collective. And they're gifts, you know, they're what we came into this world with to further the collective and help it evolve. So those are your defined centers. So your undefined or open centers, these are the white areas in your chart. So with an undefined center, it's a white area but with numbers in red. And those numbers in red are the defined gates you have. They're called undefined centers. The open centers are completely white with no defined gates at all. So what's true for an undefined center is also true for an open center, but the open centers will feel that even more strongly. They'll pick up energy even more strongly in that area. So like I said, this is where we pick up on the energy of other people in those open and undefined centers. And those centers are really here where we're here to gain wisdom. It's not a natural gift that we bring, it's what we're here to learn, and the gifts that other people give us in those open and undefined centers. So the energy that you experience in those centers is like you've turned all the jets off in the jacuzzi, and it's literally a mirror. So the water's still and clear, and it's a mirror, and it's picking up on the energy of what's around it, and it's reflecting back or amplifying the energy that's coming in. So that's what those open or undefined centers are designed to do. And we amplify the energy of others in these centers. So Vanessa, where you're saying that your husband's a projector, where he has an undefined or open sacral, he'll be picking up on the energy of your defined sacral and amplifying it. So he will have access to that energy when he's around you, but when you've left, he doesn't have access to that energy anymore. So that's the difference in the way his energy works compared to yours. So you can be quite complementary in that way, him picking up on your energy until you leave. And then for him, that energy's gone. So our open and undefined centers are really fascinating in the way they work. Absolutely. Oh, good. Good. I'm glad it works. Yeah, you really do find that he'll definitely. I'm the same with my husband's got a defined ego center and mine is undefined. So I pick up on his willpower when he's around me. I have willpower for days to get things done. But as soon as he leaves, that willpower just kind of dissipates and disappears. And before I learned about human design, I didn't understand why that was happening. I thought that was something shameful that I was doing because I didn't have that consistent willpower. But our white, open, undefined centers aren't designed to have consistent access to that energy. Yeah, it is fascinating. It is. And it makes you feel better, because I was thinking, oh, why don't I have the same willpower that he's got? I'm not right, you know, I'm not being a good girl, but I'm just not designed to work like that. So now I know that, it gives me kind of more confidence in who I am. So it is fascinating, and that's the gift that those open and undefined centers can give us, to learn that wisdom. So yeah. Okay, so the next part of your chart to look at, so you know what your type is, you know what centers you have that are defined and undefined. So you can see, this is my chart. So I was talking about having that, in fact, I've got an open will center. So I don't even have it undefined. There are no gates defined there. It's completely open, and an open head center as well. So you can have a look at your own chart and just work out which centers are defined for you and which are undefined. So we looked at type, we've looked at centers, and the next thing to unpack is our authority. This is quite a big subject, and one that we can go into a little bit more at another time, but it's important to know what your authority is, and the reason for that is because our authority is the way that we make decisions. So how are we designed to make decisions? And there are 7 different types of authority in the human design chart. The most common is emotional. So you can see here, I've got my solar plexus defined. So the way I make decisions is to ride my emotional wave. There are different emotional waves that we can have. There's 3 or 4 different ones, and they work differently as well. But if I'm going to make a decision, as a generator, my sacral will respond in the now. So yes, no, do I want to do that? Do I not want to do that? And then particularly with big decisions, I'll ride my emotional wave for, depending on the size of decision, can be up to a few days, to go through the highs and lows of my emotional wave in that motor center, to come to a place of clarity, which is where I make those bigger decisions from. So that's why it's really important to know what your authority is and how it works. You can have a sacral authority, and I know in the group we do have some sacral authorities, because I've seen that as I've gone through. So your sacral authority is very much in the now. It will tell you immediately if something's right for you or not. It will be yes, no, absolutely want to do that, or no, I do not want to do that. So particularly if you are, for example, a sacral generator, that's a kind of double whammy of your sacral working to say yes or no, I want to do something or I don't. And then your authority is sacral. So that reaction is even stronger. And that's your energy's way of letting you know where you need to put it. You know, do you need to be putting it in this project, or do you need to be putting it in that project? Oh, Vanessa, you're a sacral. Yeah, so your husband would feel that double whammy from you as well. So you've got that sacral center defined, but also a sacral authority. So you'd be very much in the now, whereas his decision-making process will be quite a lot different depending on what his authority is. That's really fascinating. It'd be interesting to run a connection chart for the 2 of you. So we can run your chart and his chart, and then you can look at the connections between the 2 charts and how they work together. That's really fascinating, because you kind of lay one chart on top of another and you can see how the energy works together. That's I love doing that. It's really interesting. You can also do that for a business as well, or an offer that you're creating. Anything where you know what the date was when it was kind of birthed into existence. Yeah, you should do it. It's really interesting. It gives you a lot of insight into the way that your relationship works. So the next authority is the splenic authority. And again, that's an authority. And I think we have a splenic projector in the group as well. That's a very in the moment authority, although it speaks a lot quieter. It's not as loud and bold as your sacral authority. Your splenic authority is quick, but it's quieter. And you often, people with a splenic authority often have to be in a quieter environment if they're making decisions, so they can hear that splenic authority speak, so they can feel it. So that's something definitely to be aware of if you're a splenic authority, for sure. And then the rarer authorities, we've got the ego authority, we've got the self, we've got the mental authority, and we've got the lunar authority. So the lunar authority can only be for a reflector. So a reflector with the big decisions is designed to go through a whole moon cycle before they make those decisions. So the moon can reflect in all of their open centers, so they can see how a decision feels at each stage of the moon cycle. It's really fascinating. It's different for the smaller decisions. These poor guys, if they waited 28 days to make a decision for everything, they'd never get anything done. Smaller decisions, they need to be in the right environment. But yeah, that lunar authority is fascinating. So authority is another huge area to look at when you start wanting to align with your design and experimenting with living with your design. So that's your authority. If anyone's got any questions about authorities, just let me know. Okay, so the next part of your chart that is really important for you to be aware of is your strategy. So how do you start living in your alignment? So you know what your type is, you know what your defined and undefined centers are. You're starting to learn how you make decisions. So how do you bring that all together to live in alignment? How do you know that you're living in alignment? How do you kind of operate day to day to start to live within your design and start to kind of embody your design? So each type has got a different strategy in the way that they're designed to kind of function in the world, and the way they're designed to get to that place where they know their energy is, being focused on the right thing. So your strategy is up here. Again, this is me. Generator. So our strategy is to wait to respond. Now, waiting to respond can seem really passive and something that you're kind of, well, but what if I want to do something? I just sit and have to, have to wait for something to come into my arena to respond to. So what your sacral's doing is it's on the lookout all the time for things where it would be really beneficial for you to put your energy where it wants to use its energy. So Ra said that waiting to respond should not be passive. Waiting to respond is an active state of being. So for me in business, waiting to respond rather than just rushing ahead, which I used to do, and then getting frustrated, waiting to respond for me looks like putting polls on my Instagram. You know, do you guys want a program on this or this? And then that's voted on. And then I respond to the most popular vote. I kind of look at my sacral and go, okay, is this something we want to do, or is this not something we want? Is this where I should be putting my energy, or this is not where I should be putting my energy? So although the generator's strategy is wait to respond, it's very much an active process rather than just sitting and waiting for something to come into your circle. The manifesting generators, because you guys are a hybrid type, so between the manifestor and the generator, you kind of have a dual strategy. So your strategy is the initiation of a manifestor, which I'll move on to in a moment, and the response of the generator. So you're quite fortunate in that you have that initiating energy. You're able to bring something into existence and respond as well. So initiation and response, that's your manifesting generator strategy. And the manifestor strategy is to inform and initiate. So it's really important for manifestors to let everybody around them know what they're about to do, to calm the energy around them, rather than just taking off and being this cutting edge of the collective and kind of cutting through everyone's energy and sending it into ripples. it's really important for the manifestor just to let people around them know what they're going to do, so people know what to expect from the manifestor, so they're more likely to get on board with it. You're also telling the universe, look, this is what I'm going to do. You're informing the universe, this is what I'm going to do, and then you can initiate, so then you can take that action. So our projectors. Projectors, again, like generators, are actively waiting. So they're waiting for an invitation. What they want or what they need is for somebody to invite them to give them that advice. So rather than just speaking their advice and just offering it and giving their advice, if they wait for that invitation, then they can be more sure that the person that's going to receive that advice is the person that should receive it. And so, for instance, if it's me as a generator and I'm asking, I think it's Ginny, yeah. So I'm saying to Ginny, I really need your help on this. You know, you've done this before. You've been through a Facebook Live where you couldn't share your screen, for instance. What did you do? Then I'm inviting Ginny to give me that information. And that will help me go off and further the collective. That will help me go off and make it a different experience for you guys next time. Whereas if Ginny were just to kind of come up to me and say, oh, Beck, you know, that was all wrong. It should have been done this way, blah, blah, blah. I will probably be resistant to that because it hasn't been invited. So that's the waiting for the invitation side of things for a projector. And reflectors, like we said, their strategy is to wait a lunar cycle. So to see how their decisions feel in all aspects of the lunar cycle before they move forward, because they're so guided by the moon and so connected to the moon cycles. If they just go ahead and push something into existence, they don't have the energy to do that. So, and that's kind of a theme for nearly all of the types, really, apart from manifestors. All the other types are designed to have their desires flow to them and to allow and to have their desires come in. Manifestors can make it happen. If it's a divine download, they can initiate and they can make those desires happen. So really the rest of the types are waiting, actively waiting for their desires to flow to them rather than pushing things into existence, which is what I used to do and never, ever, ever worked. Just ended up in my non-self theme, which I'll take you through. So we will move into that next. Okay, so the kind of final part of the puzzle, when we're looking at which parts of your chart you should look at if you're going to start living in your design, or you want to start living in your design, is your signature and your not self. So in the Jovian archive map or chart, it just gives you your not self theme. It doesn't give you your signature. So I can do some teachings in the group about what your signatures are, or you can get it anywhere else on the net. So your signature, this is how we know as types, as each type, if we are in alignment. So are we doing things that light us up? Are we waiting for the invitation? Are we letting people around us know what we're going to do so that we calm the energy field around us? That's our signature. And our non-self tells us when we're out of alignment. When are we just jumping in? When are we not waiting for that invitation? When are we just going ahead regardless? So they're really big indicators, or red and green flags, if you like, as to when you're in and out of alignment. So as a generator, your signature will be satisfaction. So what does that feel like? So for instance, when I'm teaching human design to you guys, like right now, I can feel my signature of satisfaction because I'm in alignment. My sacral is regenerating and recharging all the time because I'm talking about something that I love. That satisfaction to me feels like peace and fullness and kind of a sense of completion, and like I don't want to be anywhere else. I wouldn't rather be anywhere else right now. That's my signature. So that's my generator self telling me or flagging to me that I'm experiencing that signature of satisfaction and I'm right where I should be. My non-self, on the other hand, is frustration. So if we use the example like I did before of in my 9-to-5 job, I was constantly in that feeling of frustration. I used to say to my husband, I literally white knuckled it today. I literally had to hold on to the desk to stop myself from leaving the office because I'm so out of alignment and I'm so frustrated at being cooped up in this office and doing a job that doesn't mean anything to me. So that's how that that's how that non-self of frustration manifests itself. For a manifesting generator, you guys again get the double whammy of the signature and the non-self of the generator and the manifester. So Mani-Gens, depending on what the situation is and depending on your particular design, whether you have more manifestor energy or more generator energy, your signature can be that of a generator, so that feeling of satisfaction when you're in alignment, or that feeling of peace when, like if you've got a bit more of the manifestor energy, or depending on your situation, it can feel peaceful. So that's when you know that you're in alignment. It's kind of like a sigh of relief. It's peace. People heard me. People listened to me. They took me seriously. They trusted me. That's when that signature piece will come into it from manifesting generator. And again, Mani-Gens, if you're out of alignment, the generator non-self of frustration, that just let me out, or this isn't working, I'm doing all the things and it's just not working, is the generator side of you. So that you can often find that in business. I found that previously in business, that real frustration of I'm doing all the things, I'm doing what I've been told to, and it's just not working. That's the frustration or the non-self. And you can also feel the manifestor non-self, which is anger. You know, people just, why don't they listen to me? Why don't they trust me when I tell them that this is what needs to happen next? This is how we need to kind of further the collective. They're not listening to me. So that can be the anger side of things. So like we said, for a manifestor, same as for a manifesting generator, you'll feel your signature of peace when you've done the informing piece, you've let people around you know what's coming next, and you've received those divine downloads and you're making things happen. You're speaking things into existence and you're initiating. That's where your peace comes in. And if people aren't listening to you, or they're not taking you seriously, or if you feel you don't trust yourself or other people don't trust you because of these crazy ideas, then you can feel that anger. The worst thing you can tell a manifestor is, that's crazy. That will never work. Why are you even doing that? That's the quickest way for a manifestor to end up in their non-self, is that, no, you're crazy. Why are you even saying that? That's not going to work. So our projectors, what do our projectors feel when they're in alignment and they're feeling their signature? Theirs is success. So in the example we talked about before, if Ginny's giving me this advice about Facebook Lives and sharing screens, and I say, that's amazing, Ginny, thank you so much, that's really helpful, and then next time I go and do it and it all works smoothly, she's going to feel that signature success. They listened. I knew all along this was the way to do it. And they listened and things got better because of what I told them. So that's the projector signature of success. And on the other hand, if a projector is out of alignment and say, I said, well, Ginny, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. I didn't ask you for your advice, so I'm not going to do it. I feel really offended by that. Please don't, you know, and on and on and on and on. Then that projector non-self of bitterness can show up. So fine, you know, I gave her that advice and she chose not to take it. And I know it's going to go wrong. I know it is, because she's not taking my advice, and I haven't been recognized. I haven't been recognized for the wisdom that I'm here to give the collective, because this is where, as a projector, I need to put my energy. And if that's not being honored or received because the projector hasn't waited for the invitation, then that non-self of bitterness can kick in. And finally, our reflectors. So reflectors can tell if they're in alignment and they're in their signature, if they feel surprise. So I reflected back at them. I reflected this back to them, and it worked. And they listened, and that person listened, and they did it. And I didn't expect it to happen, but it did. And that's that signature of surprise. And on the other hand, they can be out of alignment if they're trying to give this advice or trying to reflect back to the community that things need to change, and the community is not listening. Then non-self can be disappointment, that kind of feeling of, I think it's not going to listen, it's not going to work. I'm so disappointed because I know things can be better. If they'd only listen, then I know things can be better. So that's where their non-self comes in. So again, a huge subject, but I know once I started to try and live more in my design and immerse myself in that feeling of satisfaction, and for you guys, depending on your type, what your signature is, you start to recognize it. And I start to immerse myself in those signatures, even in little moments during the day. So, you know, first sip of coffee in the morning, giving my pup who's down here, giving him a hug, my Zoom working, that's all satisfaction. So I'm signaling to the universe, this is what I want more of, please. I acknowledge that this is where I'm in alignment and I want more of this feeling, please. So I tend to use that a lot in money manifestation, using those signature moments, so which is a whole other subject. So does anyone have questions or comments about their signature? So our generators or mani-gens or projectors, do you have any questions about your signature, or do you know when you've been in those, you can feel those feelings of signature? Good. I'm glad it makes sense. Yes, excellent. Okay, yeah, because as soon as you, or as you become aware of it, or as you start to learn about it, you become aware of it and you're like, oh yeah, this is what satisfaction feels like, or this is what peace feels like, this is it. And you take for granted because you've felt these things throughout your life but not really known what they were. And when you know what they are, then you know that not everyone has them. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know that my satisfaction signature is different to say Ginny's of success. You know, once you learn the differences, it's fascinating. Oh, it's my pleasure, my pleasure. I'm glad it's helpful. I'm really glad it's helpful. Hopefully it's helping you just to start unpack those basics of your design, so you can work out where you want to learn more or where you want to dig deeper. So good, I'm glad. Now we're coming to the end now, and thank you all so much for sticking around and bearing with me. I've put this quote up because it's something that really resonates with me, and I think will resonate with a lot of women in the human design Facebook group that we have, our Fearless Women by Human Design. So Richard Rudd studied under Ra Uru Hu, and he also received some downloads for a slightly different system. So for Gene Keys, Gene Keys is another whole area of human design which is fascinating. It's to do with the gates, the planets on either side of the chart. So if you want to dive in a bit more, you can go and look at the work of Richard Rudd. And I put this up because for me, I'm starting to use human design, or I'm using human design to kind of decondition that inner good girl and the person that needs to behave and the person that needs to do things as it's kind of laid out. So this resonated with me. So he said, human design is not about escaping or fixing the conditioning. It's simply about seeing it, and in seeing it, no longer being a victim of it. So I think this is a beautiful way to put it. Particularly in your open centers, it can happen in your defined centers too, but in your open centers, you can really be subject to conditioning, several different types of conditioning. But those open centers can be really vulnerable to it, but they don't need to be fixed. There's nothing wrong in your chart. For every one of us, our charts are beautiful. I feel really passionate about this. Our charts are beautifully and perfectly designed. So there's nothing that we need to fix by deconditioning it. It's the awareness of steps that we can take to change things around in those centers, the steps that we can take to recognize where the conditioning has come in during our lives, and how we can really be aware of that so those centers can operate as they're designed to operate. So that's why I put Richard Rudd's quote up there, because I think it's a beautiful quote. Okay, so one of the girls in the group sent me a couple of questions because she couldn't be here. So I'll go through these questions, and if you guys have got any questions yourselves, you can either put them in the chat or just shout out. Hopefully, yeah, you can still hear me. Okay, all right, so Michelle asks, she's an MG. So she's very new to human design. I think she literally downloaded her chart last night when we started. She contacted me and we started talking about it. So, but I thought it was a really good question. Talk a little bit about the numbers. Yep, I'll come back to that in a moment, Kristen, no problem. Can you just elaborate what you mean a bit more? Do you mean the gates on either side of your chart, or in your centers, or the profile? Just let me know what you'd like to know a bit more about. So Michelle says, as an MG, is it really important to wait 24 hours to let the highs and lows of a decision to be felt before making the decision from your sacral? Couldn't you feel the decision from your sacral immediately? So really what she's talking about is your authority. So depending on what your authority is how you're designed to make decisions. So it really, the reason this question is important is because it's really not down to your type, how you make decisions. It's down to your authority. So your authority is the one that kind of has the final say. So if you want to know how you make decisions best, or how you make aligned decisions, find out what your authority is in your chart, and then kind of dig more into that. So from memory, I think she's a sacral authority. So if you're a sacral authority, then yes, she will feel that answer from her sacral immediately. It's a very in the moment, yes or no kind of. You can even kind of lean forwards. Yes, that's what I want to do, or no, that's not what I want to do. I'm not interested in that. If your decision is emotional, you may ride waves depending on how big that decision is. So yeah, I thought this question was important because it's not your type that lets you know how you make decisions, it's your authority. And even within your authority, particularly if you're emotional authority, how the waves work inside that, depending on which channels you have defined or undefined. And Michelle also talks about, so when you're an MG, everybody's energy works differently, from nutrition to exercise to rest to play to everything. So all the types have different ways that their energy works. And with Mani Gens, what we say is you should go to bed before you're tired, because if you wait till you're exhausted, it sometimes means that you can't sleep. So it's better to go to bed before you feel tired. And then once you're in bed, you can use the rest of that sacral energy up. You can burn it off. That's very different to what we're taught. You know, we're taught to go to bed and wind down and not be on our phones and not watch TV and not work, not do anything else. That's what we're taught. But each type has its own different needs. And for Mani Gens, it's important for them to go to bed before they're tired and wind down. And so Michelle's saying here, what does that mean? What kind of activity can that mean? Well, like I said, you can watch TV, you can play on your phone, you can do some work. Whatever you feel that is going to burn up that last bit of sacral energy is the right thing to do for you. But often we're conditioned out of doing that. So I thought that was a really important question to answer. So thank you, Michelle, when you're watching the replay. Okay, so Kristen, thank you for this. Can you talk about the numbers, the profile? So I think I think Kristen is talking about, let me just scroll back to a chart here. So talking about your profile up here. Is that right, Kristen? Profiles are fascinating. So your profile is taken from the number here. So you can see you've got the 6 on the conscious side of your personality and the 2 from the unconscious of your personality. So the 6 is how I think people see me. So my profile is a 6-2. So the 6 is the role model profile or the teacher profile. Again, the profile, you're also a 6-2. Awesome. Profiles are fascinating, and profiles are actually heavily subject to conditioning. So that's something that I want to explore more with the good girl conditioning aspect of what I teach and coach. So the 6 for me and Kristen is how we think people see us, like what we project to people. So the role model, the teacher. The 2 is how other people see you. So that's from here. So that's your unconscious. So I'm going through a coaching program at the moment, and my coach often says that she feels that some of the language in human design can be quite confronting. So she's looking at different ways to put things. So the 2 is known as the hermit, which kind of fits me as well, because I love spending time on my own and I love working from home, kind of basically on my own. But the 2 is how other people see me. And the hermit is also known as the natural. So other people see you as naturally good at things. Like Kristen, people may say to you, it's not fair. You pick things up really easily, like you're good at everything. And that's great, but that can kick in with some conditioning as well. So when people say that to me, or when they used to say it to me, I used to kind of hide my light, if you like, and kind of go, I don't want to stand out, so I'm not going to show that I'm good at that thing, because people are going to think I'm showing off and kind of arrogant and too big for my boots. So your profiles are really interesting, and depending on the combination of your numbers, you can tell if you're here to work through personal karma or you're here to work through interpersonal karma. So for me and Kristen, it will be interpersonal karma. So we've mastered the personal karma in previous lifetimes, and now we're here to work out that interpersonal karma, so that relationship karma. There's only one profile that doesn't have any karma attached to it, or any karmic lessons, if you like, attached to it, which is the 4-1 profile, which is fascinating. So yeah, we can, if you guys want to go into profiles at some point, we can dig into that, because I find them very, very fascinating. So does that answer your question, Kristen? If anyone else has got any questions, feel free to pop them in. Oh, good. Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure. Pleasure. Okay. All right. So what's next? So if you found this really interesting and useful and you'd like to dig into it a bit more, what I would say is experiment with using a strategy. So depending on what type you are, whether that's waiting to respond or actively waiting to respond, or waiting for the invitation, or informing and initiating, just start experimenting with using your strategy. I would hate for human design to be something that you have to memorize and study and use in every situation and make sure that you use it. That's not what it's for. It's supposed to be integrated with your life and for you to embody it and learn more bit by bit, and you start experimenting with it in your life. So just look out for using a strategy or those signature moments, experiencing your signature moment. And the next thing I would also dig more into is your authority. Work out what your authority is and how it works. If you want to know more about that, again, pop it in the Facebook group and we can talk a bit more about that. But I would say that's the next kind of layer for you to dig into. That's what I would look at next. So that is it for today. If anyone has any more questions, just yell or pop them in the chat, or you can put them in the group, or you can DM me. I'm always happy to answer questions. It makes my heart sing that you guys are here today and that you want to know more about your human design. Giselle, my pleasure. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you found this useful or entertaining or learned something, I would be so happy if you guys could just take a screenshot of the next slide and share it on your IG, on your stories, and tag me. That would really help, and that would help kind of spread the word about human design. So if any of you are happy to do that, I know I'm going to do that, so I can put us on IG. So let me pick Nick. Perfect. Okay. Oh, it's my pleasure, Vanessa. My pleasure. And yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. So the next Facebook Live, hopefully, I'm going to do is about good girl conditioning and where it shows up in your chart, and how you can look at the conditioning or recognize the conditioning in your defined and undefined areas, and how we can look at working on that so we can live a fearless life. I also have a guest speaker coming up in January, Maria Henning. She's incredible. She is going to talk to us about self-trust and where to focus on self-trust in a human design chart. And then at the end of January, I have Dawn from A Joyful Body, who's going to talk to us all about being fearless with your sexuality. I met Dawn a few months ago online, and she's kind of really opened my eyes to women's sexuality and how we can live within it fearlessly, and how we can kind of move away from the conditioning that's around it. So that's at the end of January that I've organised for you guys. So that's, I'm really interested about that. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for bearing with me. I so appreciate you bearing with me on this first session. Hopefully next time I will have that sorted out, but you really meant the world to me that you guys still showed up, because I expected to turn my Zoom on and be no one here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Just please know you've made my day. My contact details on the screen. Obviously, any questions, you put them in the group. If you could share in the group if you found this useful. And my email's on there, my website, and my Insta. So good. I'm so happy. If nobody's got any more questions, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for your patience and your questions. And I'll let you know when the next session's going to be up. Thank you so much.